Now time for today's focus on the programme, and Mexico's President Enrique Pena Nieto is today gearing up to join François Hollande here in Paris later this week for France's 14th of July celebrations on the Champs-Élysées. Bastille Day, of course, France's major annual festival. Many, though, here in France and around the world as well, are rallying against Mexico's growing human rights problems. The Mexican government, though, asserts allegations of torture are only isolated cases. So who's right? Well, Laurence Covillier and Natasha Pinzi have this report for us.
You might know these images. December 9th, 2005, Florence Cassés and her boyfriend, Israel Vallarta, are taken down in a staged arrest for television. Israel had been tortured for hours into giving a false confession for the cameras.
¿Quiénes son las personas que tienes aquí secuestradas?
No conozco.
¿Hay un menor de edad?
Sí.
¿Dónde lo secuestraron? ¿Te duele algo?
Sí, sí.
¿Te lastimaste ahorita en la...?
Usted me pegó. Perdón.
¿Quién le duele?
Nada, señor.
¿Quién le pegó?
Nadie, señor.
Torture on live TV. The authorities accepted it, and his statement was considered valid. This is not out of the ordinary in Mexico. Lawyer Aaron Guerrero has been dealing with this for 10 years.
I can tell you that of all of the clients that I represent, around 60% have been victims of torture.
He's fighting for confessions given by his clients under torture to be annulled, but it's an uphill judicial battle.
Torture has a specific characteristic. You can be hurt, but for that to be considered torture, an authority, in this case a judge, has to consider the pain was caused to get confessions we consider to be illegal.
Mexico's Human Rights Commission received 7,000 claims of torture from 2010 to 2013. That's not counting incidents of torture which have gone unreported for fear of reprisals. On March 9th, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Juan Mendez, said that torture is widespread in Mexico. The Mexican government family denies this and said the UN's report was unprofessional. But in this recent video, 3 men in police uniforms asphyxiate the man who's tied up. Multiple sources have revealed that the scene was filmed in the police offices of Tlaxcala in the east of Mexico. We met with a former policeman from that town who confirmed this for us. But according to him, the police are not properly trained in the specific torture techniques used in that region.
Well, look, one of the policemen is trying to hold him down, but he can't. The man is writhing because he's really being suffocated. They're doing it wrong. Here in the state of Tlaxcala, we have a different approach. We don't tie someone up like that. We wrap bandages on his head and feet. Then we put him on a mattress and pour water up his nostrils. That's the most practical method to avoid leaving marks.
He talks about torture techniques like local traditions. This is a reality far from the Mexican government's account that there are only a few isolated cases of torture. Juan handed in his uniform a year ago. He says all his superiors just closed their eyes to the problem.
No, there was never a case when a colleague was punished. What would happen is that if there was a mark, we'd work together to justify it. We would come to an agreement with the medics so that they would not mention it in their report, or if they did mention it, it would be minimized. They'd say that the person was injured during the arrest or when he got into a patrol car.
From 2005 to 2013, there were just 7 cases brought against state officials for carrying out torture nationwide.
Here, it's a part of police work everywhere. If we don't use torture, we wouldn't get anywhere. Because we don't have the same tools as our colleagues in the United States, like fingerprints, fiber optics, investigation. We can't do all that. So we do it the Mexican way. We catch someone, we torture them, they give a confession, and then we move on.
Poorly trained police, outdated investigation methods, and the reassuring backing of decades-old impunity. During the dirty war of the 70s, hundreds of left-wing guerrillas disappeared at the hands of the police and army. No sentences were ever given to those who carried out torture in Mexican prisons.
There was one with the code Estrella, another called Guerra. They kept working normally in the police force after that.
Jose Luis was hung from his arm for hours and had to have it amputated. He's never had justice. Historian Ilich Escamilla has studied this dark chapter in the country's history and says it continues to plague Mexican society.
Los cuerpos torturados sirven como propaganda.
A tortured body is a form of propaganda. At the end of the day, if we see policemen carrying out torture, that's also a message. They can give themselves the luxury of being seen because there's so much impunity. That doesn't happen by accident. It's a method of terror.
Despite being the 13th largest economy, Mexico's track record keeps it firmly on the blacklist of international human rights watchdogs, a fact that tarnishes the country's image and aspirations of modernity.